Ugh, that's a hard question.
So I went to the Ford dealership and I picked up a new oil filter adapter gasket. So this is the new revised gasket. It's metal with the rubber in the middle for the gasket material itself. And I've talked about this gasket before in the past. We put this on my friend's black Mach 1 and then he said it was leaking. So I went back and I took the video we made with his black Mach 1 of this and I cut out the part numbers and this gasket information because I didn't want that to be on the channel if it was not supposed to be on the car. But then we went back and he told me that it was actually leaking from the bottom of the oil filter adapter housing, and there's a little threaded Allen in there that always leaks, and so he tightened that up and it stopped leaking. And so this is the correct gasket for the Mach 1, any of the 4.6 cars now, supposedly. It replaces all of them. There used to be a different one for the Cobra, a different one for the GT, different one for the Mach 1. So we'll get to that. I'll show the part numbers later on here in the video and what ultimately I ended up using on the car. But I love this Mach 1. I've been driving it everywhere. I take it all around. I take it on these beautiful drives around the lake. This is one of my most favorite places to go. You've probably seen it in the other cruise videos. And I've also been daily driving the new Silver GT, so the Mach 1's been getting a little bit of a break, but I did take this around and enjoy it. My wife and I took it on 2 cool road trips. I'll show you those coming up and where we ended up, but here's the drive. There's my buddy 20. What's up, 20? So this is Cedar City, Utah, pretty cool little town, and my wife and I came here to go to the temple for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There are 2 of those temples in our current town, but both of them are closed. One's being renovated, one's being built. So we took 2 trips here in the Mach 1. It's about an hour away, so total of 4 hours of driving in the Mach 1. But it needed an oil change, and the oil filter adapter gasket was leaking. You can see 117,000 is when I did the last oil change. It's at 121 right now. So I wanted to get under here and do that. And I thought I could probably just get it away with an oil change, but it really does need the oil filter adapter gasket housing to be replaced, the seal, the gasket there that we talked about earlier in the video, because it's just slightly dripping. So anyway, this is actually a plastic cutting board. I got a pack of like 3 of them. I gave 2 of them to my wife, and the other one I used in the garage to catch the oil on. I've used plastic bags in the past. It's just this whole cross member area, the K member, the rack and pinion, it gets soaked with oil when you take off the oil filter on these cars, and so I like to divert as much of that oil away from it as I can. But you can see the K member is a little oily under here because that that gasket for the oil filter adapter housing has been leaking, and so it's a kind of a slow drip, but I figured it'd be better to change it out now than let it get worse and then get to a point where it's like really bad, because my friend's black Mach 1 and my cousin's Mach 1, were both at the point where they were like steady dripping oil and just losing oil quickly from that gasket failing. So I thought I might as well just do it now since it's time for an oil change anyway. And I wanted to daily drive the Silver GT more, so I wanted to put this car away. But here are the two gasket differences, okay? This is the one that's supposed to be for the Mach 1, the old plastic gasket with blue on it. And this is the new revised one that's supposed to be for all 4.6 liters. And so the Ford's part counter can tell you that. You see the blue one was the Mach 1, and now this is the new metal one with the black on it. So technically you could use either of these gaskets. Ford will tell you at the parts counter that the new one has replaced this old one, but I did have this old one for Mach 1 on hand. I bought two of these on eBay and gave one to my brother just to have them because that's the only place I could find them. But it is true, supposedly you can use the new one on the Mach 1 or the Cobra or the GT. So anyway, I think I'll just use the one that's specific to the Mach 1 here, the older one, and then I'll have that newer one to use on either of my GTs if they need it in the future. So here's the housing. You can see all the bolts up there. That's what we have to take off. We got to take off this radiator hose here, and I'll just leave all of it connected up there and snake it through once I take the bolts out, and then I can clean the mating surfaces. So here's that upper radiator hose. Now I'm in the front of the car here, but pulling this off and trying to get it to fall right into a bucket is what I wanted to do, and catch this coolant and try to reuse it because this car has new coolant in it, the Motorcraft Gold. So I just wanted to save as much of it as I could. And I also got a big plastic mattress cover actually to sit on for all this in case I spill anything. So that worked out pretty well. I was happy about it. And then I got all the bolts out, and then just snaking this whole assembly out together is the way I wanted to do it. Now I've done this job on my blue Mach 1, my red Mach 1, my Red Fire GT, my brother's white GT. We did it on my friend's black Mach 1. It's just I knew it'd be time to do it on here. But now this is something that I like to do. If I get super oily, I use the grass to help wipe it all off, and it actually helps a lot. And I figure if I pay for this grass and I mow it and take care of it and use it, I might as well use it for my benefit as well. So anyway, yeah, that helped out a lot. And the neighbors can see me using the grass for what I like to use it for, so I thought that was funny. But anyway, looking at this gasket, it was actually still stuck to the block, and that's okay. It wasn't too bad, you know, it was just slightly drizzling on the bottom two holes there. Those were the oil passages. And so we'll get this off and we'll look at it next to the new one, and we'll clean the mating surfaces. So here's the block side. It looks pretty good. I'll use a Scotch-Brite pad and clean that up a little bit and make sure that's smooth and ready to go on. And a lot of times these surfaces to pinning a little bit. Luckily the block side was okay, but on the housing side usually I see a little pitting around where the coolant goes through, and so I'll show you what I do with that. I get a little bit of RTV on it, but just cleaning up both sides to make sure that they're flush and ready to go, getting the residue around here. This is where the coolant goes through, and just cleaning this up as nice as I can. So looking at it, looks really good. Here's the old gasket. We'll lay it here next to the new one, and you can see that, like I said, the Mach 1 had the blue on it if it was a Ford gasket. And I know Felpro makes different ones in different colors, and the Cobra's different colors and stuff, but as far as the Ford ones go, there's the part number. So this is the exact same part number as the new one, and this was old stock, new old stock NOS. So this is the exact same gasket for Mach 1, but you can see there's a tiny bit of pitting there going on in the aluminum. It's really not a big deal. It's not where the gasket is anyway, but I just would rather be safe than sorry. I like to use this ultra black gasket maker and just put a very light film on it, just enough to fill in those little pitting holes and make sure that this isn't going to leak, but not enough to compromise the gasket. And here, this clip, I put it straight down and then turned it over. This is putting that hose back on near the thermostat. That's what that is down there. But anyway, got it all bolted back on and straight. And make sure to run those bolts in together. Make sure to put the gasket in there too. But running them in together kind of at the same rate helps to sink that gasket on straight. So got that all there and very well done. Look good. And so I come over here to my little cabinet where I have my own stock of oil filters. I have even more in the drawer below. These are all the FL820S filters, the Ford Motorcraft ones. That's what I like to run on all my 4.6 Mustangs. I really like these oil filters. I think they're really nice. But anyway, I did move the shaker out of the way. There's two 10mm bolts there, and I wanted to make sure all of my grommets were still on the shaker, which they were. I've found them before down in the intake. Luckily, they didn't get away on my other Mach 1. And anyway, this is where you're supposed to fill the coolant to burp the system, but it did not want to come off, and it started to strip out just a tiny bit, so I said forget it, we'll use this hose right here. I did that with my other two Mach 1s, but you fill it up with that hose until it starts coming out the top of that crossover area, so then you know that it's pushed all the air bubbles out. So I added all the oil and ready to start. So it's very important now to make sure that that gasket is sealed properly, that there's not any coolant or oil coming out of it, and to make sure that the system is burped properly, because the coolant is prone to get trapped with air bubbles and overheat the car, so you don't want that. So like I said, I filled it up in that hose until coolant started coming out of the top of the crossover, so I knew that it filled the level of the block upwards. And this is how I burped the systems on all my cars, and so it's worked nicely for me. I've never had any issues with it, but I just wanted to make sure that everything was good under here. Well, if there were any air bubbles in there, there aren't anymore, and they ain't happy. They're gone. Out nicely. I drove the car to work and back, checked the fluid levels, everything fine, keeping an eye on the temperature, nothing's overheating. Just drove the car, ran some errands. This is just parked at the hardware store, just walking out to the Mach 1. Just love this car, it's so beautiful. So that's the update on the car. I'm just glad to get that done. I've been wanting to do it. You know, I changed the oil last time at 117,000, and I saw that, and I was hoping it wasn't that gasket, the little threaded part on the bottom of the oil filter adapter housing gasket was leaking, and I fixed that hoping it was the fix. But then as I kept an eye on it for the last interval of this oil change, I could see it was still drizzling a little bit out of there, and so, well, seeping more. But I'm just glad to get that done. It's peace of mind knowing it's not leaking anything, and I'm just happy to have finally done that. I was waiting for this oil change to come up. I'm like, okay, I think I did a little bit early too. So, I mean, full synthetic, you can run it like 6,000 miles or so and be pretty safe. And if they're easy miles too, not racing a lot and stuff. But anyway, I just went ahead and changed the oil and did full synthetic again, and everything looks good. So I drove it up about 40 miles and back, and everything is perfect, not dripping or overheating or anything. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for more Mustang content.